Hi everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm really excited to have Eve G, and she'll be discussing. We'll be discussing together what is like the deeper dive into why Lakshmi is the remedy for Shukra Graha. So I really welcome Eve G, and I'm so excited, and I'm really excited to do this session with you today.
Hi, Navji. Thank you so much. As you know, I usually open with a mantra. So this time I might open with a little bit of a longer one because, to talk about these Shaktis or to talk about these Devatas is really humbling, or it should be if we have the proper understanding that we don't understand. If we understand that we don't know, um, then it becomes a humbling thing to take on a subject like this. So I will do my best. I first and foremost pray that all of you are protected from any of my ignorance. This is not false modesty. This is real prayer that you be protected from any blind spots that I have. And that I pray that Mahalakshmi, the divine intelligence that is Mahalakshmi, is here with us today to correct anything that my limited intelligence is not perceiving properly. So I will open with the Mahalakshmi Ashtakam. I will not be reciting the Palam. For those of you interested in the Mahalakshmi Ashtakam after this, you're welcome to look it up and read the fruits of the mantra. I myself do not want any fruits from this. So I will not recite the Palam, but I will recite the 8 shlokas. And it's from Indra Devata, Devaraj. So it begins, of course, with Indra Uvacha. Indra speaks. So, Om Hrim Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste-stu Mahamaye Shri-pite Sora-pujite Shankha-chakra-gadha-haste Mahalakshmi Namostute. Namaste Garudharudhe Kolasora Bhayankari Sarva Papa Hare Devi Mahalakshmi Namostute. Sarvagye Sarvavarade Sarvadushta Bhayankari Sarvadukka Hare Devi Mahalakshmi Namostute. Siddhi Buddhi Pradhe Devi Bhukti Mukti Pradayani Mantra Murte Sada Devi Mahalakshmi Namostute. Adyantarahite Devi Adi Shakti Maheshwari Yogajeya Yoga Sambhute Mahalakshmi Namostute. Stula Sukshma Maharaudre Mahashakti Mahodhare Mahapapa Hare Devi Mahalakshmi Namostute. Padmasanastite Devi Parabrahma Swarupini Parameshi Jaganmata Mahalakshmi Namostute. Shvetambharadhare Devi Nanalankara-bhushite Jagastite Jaganmata Mahalakshmi Namostute. Namo Narayani. Okay, let's get started. Thank you all for sitting through that with me. Sorry for any mistakes and imperfections. So we're beginning with an image of Mahalakshmi Devi at Sri Vishnu's feet. You'll see this is a common image. And I would like to preface what we're going to be discussing before we get into it, just to remove any rigidity in the mind about the role of a woman, all the thoughts that may be going on about gender or male, female, all this stuff. Can we just please wash our minds of anything we've heard from any other source, any thought that's not originally ours? Okay, just be naked in the mind for now, just empty, naked, nothing covering. Because what happens is we hear all these things and they definitely influence us to some degree. We walk around with a mind full of influence from society, from various sources, from parents, starts in childhood, from everyone. And because of that, we I don't know how many original thoughts we actually have that just belong to our own perception. So if there is a force in nature that gains its power through independence, there may also be a force in nature that gains its power through dependence. And dependence is not such a weakness. And I do want, we will talk about what this actually means, but this is the version of the feminine attribute that is opposite of what is celebrated today in many ways. Okay, it is a different kind of strength that now is being portrayed perhaps as a weakness due to fear that someone will take advantage of us or someone will, so this attribute of the feminine, it doesn't matter which gender your body is in. If you're a feminine person, this attribute very well could be alive in you. And because we're going to be discussing why Mahalakshmi is the remedy for the Graha Shukra, it's important to really take a deep dive into who she is and not be caught up on the physical wealth attribute, which is actually, if you have really devoted time to her, really devoted time to who she is, not just once again going off of what people tell you, but let's say you begin with doing your own research through reading. And then when you get a little bit more of a feeling about it, a devotion towards it, try doing her sadhanas, even if it's 40 days of very simple, Shreem, Om Shreem Lakshmaye Namah, just simple, just 108 times a day, and see what she communicates that she is. Take a risk. It's 40 days of your life. Have one pointed focus on one thing. Just do your work, whatever. Just say that mantra over and over and over in your mind all the time. Give it a try. See what happens. Do the experiment with your own breath and blood. Put yourself into it instead of expecting some idiot like me or whatever that might mislead you. By the way, I am no guru. So I am only sharing with you my devotion in a friendly way. And what I really hope is that more of us trust ourselves and withdraw our trust from sources that are designed to influence us. So really take this upon yourself and let it be between you and her, or whatever she is. If she doesn't exist, I guess you won't experience anything. But don't go around saying she doesn't exist or that it's fiction if you haven't tried the sadhana, because that's not scientific. Be scientific. Do the sadhana. And I would say you would some cases you need to be much more persistent than 40 days to have a real conclusive experience. But do this, try this. So this image I wanted to start with because this is a force of the feminine that is quite, I would even say, strong through its vulnerability. And this is really going to highlight who Shukra actually is in the chart as well. So a lot of these things that we're talking about with Shukra Graha and like worldly things like bhog, bhoga is a big thing with Shukra, which is worldly enjoyment. However, Shukra is called the original yoga karka, the original indicator of yoga, union. So this is going to become clear. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next, if I can. Next. There we go. So here we see an image of Mahalakshmi in the heart of Sri Vishnu. This is a common thing. You'll see in mantras to Lakshmi that she resides in the Hridaya, or the heart of Vishnu. And it's also in Vishnu's mantras, you'll see that he resides in the heart of every human. And in her Sahasranamam as well, it will say that she resides in the heart of humans, that she has Narayana, Narayani. They have a lot to do with this Bhuloka. They actually have compassion for this loka. So compassion becomes a key word when dealing with either Mahavishnu or Mahalakshmi. It much more than wealth, compassion, karuna or daya. I mean, these words come up a lot. So I've chosen here a Jnanam. This is the Jnanam mantra that is written before the Sahasranamam for Mahalakshmi in the Skanda Puran. And so this was given to the Sanat Kumars, the little boys, the 4 little boys. And you'll see here over and over, it's talking about the lotus. This is a very important note. So over and over and over, the lotus, the lotus, the lotus, okay? So Padma, you know. And, you know, this beloved, this energy of the beloved comes forward too a lot in these, in Vishnu Lakshmi, there's a lot of this emphasis on love as well, but love in a, for lack of a better word, very pure way, not to draw distinctions on love. But for those of you interested, this also has the same, it is the same chandas or the same meter that I did the Ashtakam in. So if you'd like to recite this, take a screenshot. It's the exact same meter. And I can do it for you if you want, but we'll just kind of keep moving. Okay. So as you saw with the little Lakshmi in Vishnu's heart, Lakshmi is born out of the churning of the ocean, the Samudra Manthan. Okay, Navji, anytime you have a question, you just stop me, okay? Because I'm just going to kind of go through the stories of Lakshmi and we'll kind of start interweaving things in.
Sure.
Okay, so for those of you who are interested in this story, or those of you studying Jyotish or any of the angas of the Vedas, the Vedangas, I would really, this is one of, for years now, this has been one of my favorite stories. I think there's many videos where I'll mention this story. Okay, so I won't repeat the parts that, like for Ashlesha Nakshatra, I know I went on and on about this because there's a lot to do. So I won't repeat those things, but let's just focus on the portion, this Lakshmi. So Lakshmi comes out of this churning of the ocean. And as we know, we have the asuras on one side and the suras or the devas on the other side. And very fascinating here because when she comes out, and this quote is either from Vishnu Puran or Devi Bhagavatam. I'd have to check which one. There's a few versions of this story. And do be aware of that. Many of these stories have various versions in the Quran. So before, thinking that one of these versions are incorrect, please do your study and you'll see that there's lots of versions. They pretty much say the same thing. But like Rahu and Ketu, they have different stories in a few of the versions. One of them, Rahu gets beheaded. The other one, Rahu and Ketu are already separate. So, there's a few stories. So in this version, Lakshmi, she comes out of the ocean, and as soon as she opens her eyes, they're so intoxicating. The Asuras, of course, are desiring her. But she immediately averts her eyes to Sri Vishnu, but specifically his chest, his heart. And immediately where her eyes go, she has union, meaning she goes right into his heart. Is a really profound thing. They don't go into explaining it. A lot of the Sanskrit texts, you either get it or you don't get it, because that rishi was speaking these words in for a specific way. So you either would get the Guptavati, you get this secret, or you would not. So there's some secret with this, that she just looks at his heart and she's there. Okay, because this has to do with who she is as a Shakti. Now, please think about this, the difference between Ma Parvati Uma being the remedy for moon and Lakshmi being remedy for Shukra, two feminine grahas. One is Mahalakshmi, one is Uma Devi. So now, big difference here, because Uma Devi, what does she do? She does a tapasya to gain Lord Shiva as a husband. She does tapasya, right? That's how she gets Lord Shiva, is through this effort. And there's many stories about this too. It's very beautiful. We could do a whole thing on that as well. There's a lot of secrets in there. But this big difference between Lakshmi just coming out of this churning of the ocean, being born out of the ocean, and immediately magnetically going into Vishnu's heart, just because her eyes fell on his heart. Immediately we do see that there's a form of magnetism and non-asking here. Okay, so I want to say there's no demand here, whereas tapasya, you may bend the beloved to your will. Okay, in tapasya, you may ask the beloved to come before you. But in this kind of situation, there was no asking. Okay, there's a hint here. If you want a remedy for Shukra, please try to have your subtle ears open, okay? Because the heart chakra, Shukra, we're going to go into this, has a lot to do with the heart chakra in Jyotish. That's actually his seat in the chakras system. In some systems, there's various systems, but majority of them will say this. So it's important because Lakshmi is in Vishnu's heart. So she goes in naturally, no tapasya, no anything, just a glance, and she takes refuge in his heart. Okay. And he, I guess, accepts her. There's no discussion of this. No words need to be spoken. So that's already a very big distinction. Okay. So let's get into some of her names. Okay. Now, these are all from her Sahasranamam. And this is specifically Skanda Puran. There's a few different versions in various Puranas. They all have pretty much the same names. Now with Devi, let's go ahead and get something really clear. With Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Parvati, or Durga, you say, their Sahasranamams can be similar in the sense that they all have their names used interchangeably. So in Lakshmi Sahasranamam, you're going to see Saraswati, you're going to see Nadani. Nadani is one of the main names of Saraswati because she deals with Nad, sound. But you'll also see that show up for Ma Kali. You'll also see it show up for Ma Lakshmi. You'll see that Sushumna Nadi, which is really associated with Saraswati, actually. But it will show up also in all of Devi's Sahasranamams. Okay, so what I've done here is picked out some names that are usually not anywhere else for the other Devis. Okay, there's some of them that are on repeat, but some of these are very, very specific to Mahalakshmi. And they repeat themselves. So in a Sahasranamam, what you'll notice is that the words that are very important and defining of that devata or that devi will repeat. So like one of them that repeats a lot for Mahalakshmi is actually stira. Does not repeat for the other devis. It's there, but it does not repeat the amount of times that it repeats for Mahalakshmi. The other thing is this references to lotuses does not repeat as much. And the references to chakras. Okay, so recently when we did the Ashwini video, I said a little bit about this, something I've contemplated for years. Just by doing their sadhanas, you get used to their names. And you notice that Saraswati, what does she have? The Veena, which is nothing but the Shashumna. Because when it's clear, the nod, the sound of the Brahma nod, the sound comes naturally. The Shashumna carries the sound. What is Gyan? What is knowledge? It's not information. It's the voice of God, you could say. The voice, I don't like the word God, but for lack of a better word, the divine voice, that thing that comes, the Shashumna Nadi carries that. So that she is the nod. That's why she has this instrument. And she's the subtle channels. Therefore, she's very connected to the subtle channels, the nadis. Isn't it funny? Sound is nod, the nadi, like this. So that's Saraswati. Then you have Ma Durga or Parvati, or you could say as well, who's more, she is the, what people call Kundalini. They call her Kundali, they call her Kundalini. In the Tantras, they call her various things, but she's the traveler through the channels. She's the Bindu. She's the one that travels through the channels. So that's why she's electric. She's force, she's intense. She's got all those weapons. She's clearing out all the junk in the channels, okay? She's really, that's the intense one. She's the dangerous one, actually. When the Kundalini gets awoken, it can actually be dangerous. Now, who is Lakshmi then? Chakra, stira. Now, give you a hint over and over, stira. She's fixed. Now, they do call her the one that moves through the channels too, and all of that, but that's because all these goddesses, they call it, they give each other each other's names. So you have to pick out the secrets this way. There's going to be one that shows up much, much more than the others, and you pay attention to that theme that isn't there with the others. And so for Lakshmi, it's the stira quality. We're going to see all the qualities that are not common. And remember Shukra, for those of you who are really interested in remedying Shukra, please draw your attention, center your attention into what some of these names could mean. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Hridaya Granthi Bedani. The one who bathe, this is an interesting word because in Ayurveda, it's something that is used a lot in Sanskrit, can actually mean an explosion. Or it can mean to separate two things or, break something. It can mean quite a few things, but in general, it's like so it's the one that's breaking the granthi, the knot at the heart chakra. Now you're going to see this is very specific to Lakshmi to break this or to open the granthi or make the flower bloom because she deals with the chakras. So you're going to see a few of her names have to do with this blooming. Okay. Okay, so this is an important factor here. Now we'll find out more about perhaps the qualities that help these chakras bloom, or the qualities you could say cultivate, or that we pray for the grace. I think sometimes just everything's grace. I don't know if we do anything. Sometimes I'm confused by that. But we'll see the qualities that are more representative of what may break these granthis, these knots, and open the flower. Bhargavi, she's literally called Bhargavi numerous times in the Sahasranamam, which is from the lineage of Bhrigu Rishi, and that is Shukracharya. Shukra is the son of Bhrigu Rishi. Okay, so let's just throw out Lakshmi with pots of gold and wealth and all this. Let's really see, who is she? Okay, Nirvana Margadha. That's a really powerful thing right there. And Shukra, Venus, is called Chitta Samadhi Krite, the producer of Samadhi. He's also called the original Yoga Karaka, the one that gives peace of mind, all of these things. It's a really important name right here. Okay. Nirvan, like, I mean, I'm not a guru. I can't awaken you to that. I can't tell you what that is in words. But we can say that we're not dealing with an ordinary force that's just throwing money at you. Okay. So we know that we're dealing with a different kind of wealth here. Now, that wealth of the lotus could translate on in this realm as wealth, of course, but that's a shadow of a shadow of a shadow of a shadow. So we need to go deep to the root and see what is the quality that actually pours over as to wealth of wealth in this world. What is the punya? What is punya itself? What is good luck? What is it actually? Because Lakshmi is actually the word luck, I'm convinced, comes from Lakshmi. So, what is this goodness that she is? What is this thing about Shukra being a benefic or a Saumya Graha? So, let's really understand it, because you can do Lakshmi Puja all you want for money and not get it. Okay, so because what's happening at the core is your sanskars don't agree, the karma does not agree. It's not going to break because you sit there and pay some priest to do Lakshmi Puja. I'm sorry, I'm not going against. Look, I've been doing this for a long time. I say this as a humble friend. It's better you do it yourself than pay someone else to do it. Not that we should be supporting priests, actually. That's a different topic altogether. It's a very important part of society. And it's actually very important for the land and for many things. But when it comes to your own personal situation on the path, you better put it in your own hands. Okay. It's much better placed there. Okay. So we have the one who delights in the mantra Shrim. So we know Shrim is her main bija. For Lakshmi is Shrim. So Shri, this denotes respect. And what is self-respect? So we're going to talk about that too, because this whole thing with Shri being self-respect, what is self-respect? Being arrogant and saying, you don't tell me anything. Like, what is it actually? Is it fighting with everyone? Is it expressing your opinion before you've actually listened to the person or had patience to understand what they're really saying? What is this respect? Why do we put that at the front of someone's name? Is all these things are very important. I think we're kind of jumping over some important attributes of nature that actually, when people are trying to remedy some planet like Shukra, they're probably going about it in a very martial way, a demanding way, in a very violent way, which actually Lakshmi is one of the devatas or devis that is anti-violence in many ways, even though in Devi Mahalakshmi she definitely comes into war. Okay, that's a different thing. But if you read her names, which we're going to get to, you're not going to be able to force her to open. You don't force a lotus to open. You have to produce something that makes it want to open. She's shy. She's a shy goddess. She's not Kali running at you naked with her tongue out. She wanted to hide in Vishnu's heart immediately. Why? Once again, that's a very deep thing to why does she want to be in his chest? That's something to really think about. She's not just going to respond to you. The asuras were all lusting after her or intoxicated by her. She diverted her glance immediately. Those who were trying to get something from her. What makes her open? Okay, this is a subtlety here. Okay, so we also see all these names related to chakra. We're going to see over and over chakra rupini, in the form of the chakras, chakrika. She's also mentioned many times to be Sri Vidya itself. So in her Sahasranamam, there's a lot about Sri Vidya, which is a very secretive practice that you really do need to be initiated into. So I will not talk about it here. I'm not, I cannot initiate anyone. There's nothing, I don't want to talk about that. But in her Sahasranamam, it's all there. Kamala, the lotus, she's called Padmavati, lotus all the time. Stira, this is a constant word for her. Stable. Now, this is a really unique attribute for Shakti, because Shakti is usually the one that's said to be moving. This is very, very unique. So she's called Stira here, stable. You're going to see this theme with her a bit. Okay. Now, if she's only material wealth, this is where we can start getting into the conversation, Navji. Because if she's really material wealth, what is that wealth coming from? What produces the merit to have that wealth? I seriously doubt it's, there is something very merciful that she says in her Sahasranama when you're reading the Palam, which I usually don't like to read the fruits. I don't care. But when you read them, actually, and I read them for this session, actually, I hadn't read them before. I'd done the Sahasranama, but I had forgotten what they said. And I was like, oh, I better read the Palam, just talk to people about it. And I had completely forgotten that she mentions that even if someone does her Sahasranamam without faith and with doubt, that she promises that she will show up somehow, that she will be with that person. It's very merciful, it's very compassionate, right? So that is one of the fruits of doing her Sahasranamam, is that she will show up regardless of what they think. Okay. Without, see, a lot of these texts will say you need to do it with faith or purity of heart or this or that. You read it like a lot of Ma Kali, actually, a lot of her things will mention that if you do this with faith, if you do this with this, if you do this with all sincerity, you do this austerity with it, then it will bear this kind of fruit. In this case, she's just saying that she's so sensitive to specifically people suffering from poverty. But why? Because poverty is a violence. It's not because she's obsessed with wealth. It's not because she has gold coming out of her hands. This is, please, poverty, as Gandhi ji said, I'm not saying I'm an advocate for Gandhi ji, I'm neutral, okay? I'm just saying for Gandhi ji, he said some really profound things, and one of the things he said is poverty is one of the worst forms of violence. And when you start getting familiar with Mahalakshmi in a real way, not just a YouTube way where you're listening to her, Ashtalakshmi Stotram for money, okay? But in a real way, when you start establishing relationship with her, you're going to see how much is focused on gentleness, perseverance as well. She would be the attribute of tolerance, patience, compassion. So she doesn't like to see things suffer. Where did she go? Right to the heart of Vishnu. And what is Vishnu concerned about? The suffering of beings. Vishnu is the most concerned about those suffering. So if she magnetically was drawn to his heart, they were already one. There's no demand. She's not going to ask anything from him. I mean, Sita didn't even, demand Ram to get her. She's just like, she wouldn't leave. There's some versions of the story that she wouldn't leave unless he rescued everyone else, So this is kind of an interesting pair. And there's so many stories of her, actually. Lakshmi, when Vishnu takes birth, she can't bear the separation, so she'll take birth immediately, randomly. I think Vedavati, maybe that's her name, is one of them in the Ramayan time. I think that's her name, is one of the incarnations. But Lakshmi, is not happy about the separation like that. There is a dependency, but it's a strength in this case. So for married couples, now remember, what is Shukra Karga of? Relationships. Okay. And honestly, this is a very deep topic, because I think we're in a very strange society at the moment for understanding just how to be kind to each other.
Mm.
Just understanding why not to nag your partner on any level, why that might be exhausting for the partner to have to hear. Think of that as a mantra. So they don't do a dish in the sink one night and you're gonna make their night a living hell. Just think about the power of sound. If sound is Saraswati, and if force is Durga, we're giving our partner all this battle, Durga, Durga, like we're just hitting them through the power of Saraswati all day. And we're scaring Lakshmi out of the home. So if you want to heal Venus, Shukra, if you're having troubles of a Shukra kind, be careful with your Saraswati and be careful with your Durga, meaning be careful with your use of force and be careful with your use of speech, because Lakshmi will stay closed as a little bud. She will not be magnetically drawn to that. Now, when you see people in the world that have a lot of wealth and they're violent, I would say that is not a manifestation of Lakshmi. It's a lack of people's knowledge of the tantras and all of this that would make them think that's Lakshmi, because there's many goddesses and devis and devatas that give wealth, like Kubera. Now they say Kubera gets permission from Lakshmi or Shukra, and Shukra owns more of Kubera's wealth. There's those kind of sayings. But Kubera and some of these other devatas actually give a lot of success and victory and defeat of enemies and wealth and all of this. So what is the wealth of Lakshmi? What is that? And I have this quote here that people probably won't. I'm going to be the most unpopular person on YouTube from this talk. And that's not why I live based on what people think. I want to help people like a friend. So if you hear me, you hear me. But if you're having a lot of disharmony in your life, chances are something's going on with Shukra. And something's going on with the lack of harmony from wasting Shukra. Okay, we'll get into that. Wasting Shukra is a big deal. Now, Shukra, of course, in Ayurveda, Shukra Dhatu is reproductive fluid. So that's one thing, which this society has no awareness of. It's like everyone's just trying to burn the candle at both ends when it comes to passion. So that's one dangerous thing for the ojas, for the health. That's one thing. It can rob the bank account of health, so to speak. But then the other thing is speech. Speech is a reproductive power. And I've said this in talks too, the only two places on the human body that have the same tissue is the reproductive organ and the mouth. This is a fact. Ayurveda knew it way before modern science. The same tissue is in the mouth that's in the reproductive system. And it's the only two places that is on the human body. This is procreative. This is Saraswati. So it is creative. Brahmi, she's called Brahmi. She is Brahma's Shakti. So she is creating. When we speak, we're creating. So what does it mean? Can speech be wasted like Shukra Dhatu or reproductive fluid? Yes. Can it drain the ojas? Yes. Can it hurt the nervous system? Yes. All these people with anxiety and all of this, are you talking too much? That's one of the first questions to ask yourself. Are you listening to too much? Like just listening to things incessantly online? And are you talking too much? Now, listening's different. It is different. That affects Akash Tattva. That's a little different. So that's going to be dealing with guru. So when you listen to too much, this is all dealing with guru. He's a kash tattva. But when it's coming out the mouth, we, are we talking too much? Are we having to talk too much? Are we, the reproductive thing going on too much? Are we exerting too much and working out? All these things that deplete ojas, that burn. See, if you are increasing Agni, fire, all the time, Agni has to have something to eat. Agni has to have oil. If you just burn up all your oil, no doubt you'll have problems. And this comes in with punya too. So when people are struggling from Shukra related problems, like they're considered to be wealth and relationships on the material plane, right? Two big things that Shukra tends to deal with in Jyotish, we hear over and over again, a portion of the wealth. There's other grahas that do that too, because guru is a bank account, right? We have other grahas too, but let's just boil it down to the simplistic. Shukra does have natural lord of the second house, all of this stuff. He has a lot to do with it. And spouse, right? Natural lord of the seventh house. Just keep it real simple. So if you look at that, it's actually the throat chakra and the Muladhara. So it's what you say and your reproductive use of energy. Literally, let's just keep it real simple. Okay. Those two things can burn your merit. So let's say you're gossiping about people. They always say that jealousy is one of the worst things for Shukra. Mm-hmm. So, and what does jealousy drive people to do often is gossip or try. A lot of people don't even realize that they may be jealous and they just start giving advice, like, or not jealous, but let's say someone's talking and they have the mic, then that person comes along and just thinks they need to correct everything the other person says. Like it's indiscriminate use of speech. Like they may not have needed to do that. Yeah. Okay, so you have Shani being Ucha in a Rashi of Shukra. Because Shani is a miser. He won't use too much. I say that kind of jokingly, but he's slow. He won't let out too much at one time. So he's good in the Muladhara. He's good in the seventh house. So he gains the most strength. He's good. He won't just expend energy. As a matter of fact, he's Ayush Karaka. So he'll extend the life because he's preserving Shukra. Shani in the second can do this too. Good at saving money or just being practical. I know a lot of people think it can be bad, but I actually see Shani in the second. It's okay. Don't worry. So when we're dealing with Shukra and we're dealing with remedies for Shukra, we first want to think about why the merit may have been drained in the first place on a subtle level. On a subtle level, and guys, even if you don't believe me, I don't care. This is not about belief. It's more about you trying it and figuring it out. I actually care about you as a person more than I care about what you're thinking. I care about you actually finding some kind of peace and like some kind of happiness in your life. So I'm sharing some secrets that I feel could be helpful. And I might be wrong. That's why I pray that you're protected if I'm ignorant, that you're protected from me. But there's some reason, in my opinion, that on the subtle level, the account has been drained first. And that's why Mahalakshmi is the key. And if you see the quality of Lakshmi, let's go back to Lakshmi. So Devi Lakshmi resides in homes where the husband and wife do not argue. Okay, now this is comical. Okay, we got to have some argument, so we're not going to get away. I think this statement is a little bit idealistic. However, okay, let's just take it at face value and deconstruct what it could mean, because you see these names, right?
Right.
So look, she's always referred to as stable. Mm-hmm. It's very uncommon for Shakti. I'll just say that, really contemplate that. She's also called Ashtanga Yogini, Ashta Yogini, accomplished in the 8 limbs of yoga. So that means to please Lakshmi, you need to know what these What is Ashtanga yoga? It's not bending your body. Find out what Ashtanga yoga, find out those qualities, because those qualities probably cultivate merit. They probably strengthen Shukra. Okay. Shanta, peace. She likes peace. When you're in a home of arguments, you're in war. And who is the Shakti of war? Durga. And she's independent. So it's not that it's bad. It depends on what your goal is. It depends on what your focus is. If your focus is to be singular, be singular. But if your focus is to have a partnership but to become two rivers together and go to the ocean, you want to have some qualities of Lakshmi, because otherwise you're wasting your time. I think there's a saying by Kahlil Gibran. I don't know how to say his name very well, but it says, never love half lovers.
Yeah. Khalil, is it Khalil Gibran? Like him?
Yes, you're probably saying it right.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say his name. I don't read a lot of Western philosophy, but I've seen the quote.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is a wonderful saying, because if you half devote your energy to anything, you at best will get half of the result, at best, if you even get that.
Yeah.
Someone who devotes their energy to everything, which is yoga. Okay, yoga, that is the aim of yoga. Well, it's not the aim, but I'd say it's a quality that is cultivated to get to the aim of yoga, which is freedom, nothing but freedom. Okay, I'm just making this very simple, but that one pointed focus shows up again and again and again. Never love half lovers. So if you are a half lover, but you're expecting a perfect relationship, so then, okay, let's examine this. Why are we half lover? Usually it's a lack of faith. Usually it's some kind of, I'm going to put multiple eggs in multiple baskets, because if this doesn't work out, it's fear, right?
Yes.
It's fear. Now, interestingly, Devi, over and over, she is given to the attribute of having no fear, fearless. So as soft and gentle and as hidden as Lakshmi is, I mean, she wants to hide on his chest. It's actually the sweetest version of Shakti, really, in so many ways, as far as what people really want to experience in life. They want to be held. They want this. Most people do. It's not even held by another person, but even embraced by life in some way, where they feel a purpose, lakshya, a goal. They feel embraced by life, like they're here for a purpose, like they're held. Her purpose is Vishnu, and she's very dependent on him. He rescues her very often, things like that. So, but that's her strength, actually. But she's said to be fearless. And Ravana touches her hair when she's incarnated. She's Ram took birth and she couldn't bear being without him. So she takes birth as this mountain girl. And Ravana comes and grabs her by the hair. And she's so fearless of death, she just lights herself on fire because he touched her. And no fear, because for her goal is to be only Vishnu's. Only Vishnu's. So if that's your goal and someone else has polluted that, she wanted to take another birth. It was it. I mean, see, this is brave. Someone might, psychologists can tear this apart and say, oh, this is this, this is this, and this is that. I mean, they could say that, but who taught them that? A book?
Right.
And then where are our lives going? Where is the stream of your life going? So you want to be psychologically healthy. And what does that mean? So at the end of your life, you're eating dry bread, you've got 4 cars, 4 kids, a house, and you die. What was your goal? I mean, in my opinion, this woman who cut her hair and burned herself had a very serious goal. That was a very serious union for her. It gave her purpose. And so no matter how much we want to philosophize about what's psychologically healthy, in the end, something in us will gravitate towards things that give us great purpose. And this is manipulated on human beings all the time, like all these movies about war. Would we even be thinking about war as much if that stuff wasn't put in our face? Would we? We don't know, because from birth it's put in your face. So we're very influenced by what we see and all of this. So how do we even know, is version psychologically healthy and all this? This is definitely, Lakshmi is definitely the ideal, in a way, dependent female, but by that, dependent meaning feminine energy that is aware that its purpose is union. So even if that union isn't with a man, so to speak, or a male energy, it's going to find it somewhere. It's the part of intelligence that is aware of its vulnerability and knows that vulnerability may also be a strength. So I have Arundhati here, who was the wife of sage Vashishta, Rishi Vashishta. And I mean, his yoga Vashisht is really profound, actually. One of the most profound proclaimed rishis. And so, like I was joking with you earlier, not everyone gets an Arundhati because they have to be Vashishta to get, if you're married to Vashishta, maybe you become that. I don't know. But her is a very interesting thing happening here with the nakshatras, because the Kritikas are the other rishis' wives that got separated from the rishis. You know the story?
No.
Okay, this is a good story because she's a really good example of this stability of Lakshmi, which comes in a lot through this Patni Vrata, this, oh my goodness, so sorry, I have a visitor. I guess she wants,
Oh.
she wants to talk about this. So this vow of, marriage, when it was taken to be a sadhana. Okay, that is the thing. Now, guys, before you think that this is brainwashing of patriarchy, I've seen so many articles about this. It's like all these women thinking that men were just trying to manipulate them into being this kind of wife so that they could have control over them. Look, I'm sure that's happened. I'm sure that there's been all kinds of manipulations of these classics specifically to get women to conform. I'm sure that's happened. Okay. I'm not debating that has happened. I'm sure people tend to oppress each other for some reason or another. I don't know. It's baffling, but I'm sure that's happened. But let's take the original purity of this vrat, of this vow. Let's take the original purity without the manipulation. So it was taken as, no matter the husband's character, he was served as absolute God. And the woman went in intelligently that her supernatural power was linked. She did it for herself. Okay, let me say this. We do these things for ourselves. It is a positive form of selfishness, you could say, in this case. Selfishness is really a terrible thing, really a disease when it's in excess. But this kind of self-stability, where you go in and say, I am going to serve this person like God, no matter what. My tolerance, my forbearance, my patience, all the things that you have to attain godhood as a yogi, you immediately get by making this person your Murti, your Devata. Okay, so the story of Tulsi is a perfect example. It sounds like someone has fabricated some story to make women this, to be in the background, and oh, you get power by being in the background. Let's let the men have the world. But ladies, let me ask you, how happy are you? Like, you're having to fight all the time and act like this, like, tough thing all the time, and it's not true.
Mm.
Okay, and so therefore, the further you are away from the vulnerability of your truth, you're never going to be happy. So if we can pick apart things like the patriarchy here, and but then if we become like them, then you have the same thing. So like some of this doesn't make sense to me. I stay away from it. So please, guys, look at this through a different lens. All of that manipulation through politics has happened, sure. But this is something else. This is a sadhana. And the woman knew what she was doing. She was allowing that natural quality of vulnerability to train her like a yogi. She was nothing but a yogi. And Arundhati did this so perfectly. She did it so perfectly that, okay, so this story. Okay, so we should say this story because once again, keep Shukra in mind. What does this mean? This quality that Lakshmi has, that very few of us have this wealth. Okay, this is not, this is a whole other thing. This is why Lakshmi, I feel, is so misunderstood, and all you'll see is like pots of gold in her mantras. So Agni had a lust problem. In a lot of the stories, he's a consumer, right? Him and Indra, they they like things. they, they very much like things. They like beauty, like soma. Okay, it says various forms of soma. Beauty is one of them. Anything you consume is a soma, really. It might not be an immortality giving soma, but it's a soma, you know. So Agni loved beauty, loved women in this story. He was really obsessed with the Rishi's wives. And, he would sneak and look at them, I guess. I would think about how often they were around fire. So wherever there's fire, there's sight. So I guess he could see them. And his wife, Swaha, got a little upset and she disguised herself. Now, there's a few different versions of this story as well, but she disguised herself as a Rishi's wives to get his attention. So to cut this short, she could imitate all of the Rishi's wives, but not Arundhati because of her vrat, because of her devotion, her absolute one-pointed focus on Vashishta Rishi. Swaha could not take her form. And the other Rishis were furious at their wives because she was able to take their form, meaning they may not have been doing the vratas perfectly. So, these are all yogis. They're all temperamental. All these guys are cursing people all the time. All these rishis, I don't know. They all need to chill. They all need to be a little calm. They're all cursing people. It's very funny, specifically Durvas, but I mean, these guys too. So those 6 wives became the Kritikas. And Kritika is notoriously a negative nakshatra for marriage, actually, for fidelity. And it's interesting because that's the moon's birth, that's the moon's janma, and that is the moon's ucha point, exaltation point. And the moon is a philanderer. In his stories, he's not one-pointed. Okay, he's not. So Kritika becomes this kind of interesting star for having the wandering eye and all of that in these stories. Okay. Bharani is the exact opposite, actually. Consider Yama is not like that, but Agni is that. So Arundhati, her star is right next to her husband's and it's always behind him. And see, people they look almost like this, like they almost look joined, they're so close, but she's just behind him. So she wanted that. That is where her intimacy with life came from. That's where that is where her subtle Shakti, her siddhis, her liberation came from, that vrat, which was actually being concealed. And Vashishta Rishi actually gained immense power from that. So just like in the story of Tulsi, Her husband was so powerful that no one could defeat him, and Vishnu had to trick her to take away the power. He had to trick her because nothing was working. So this is these women, just like Shukracharya's mother is another one. So we're talking about Shukracharya's mother. She had some subtle, not because she had muscles and she was fighting all the men all the time and beating them at their professions and all of this. She had some ability, some subtle ability that was so much stronger than the Devatas, all the Devatas, Indra, his whole army. It was so much stronger. They could not locate the Asuras when she would put them under her protection. This is a woman who was in the background. The father was in the forefront. But she was the one, not the Rishi himself. She was the one that had that. And Vishnu had to, once again, it's interesting because Vishnu is typically the only one that can take these women down. And it's this link with Lakshmi that people should be taking real interest in, because Lakshmi is this Shakti that allows you to station yourself in one plane. Okay, so the Sufis have this thing, these steps and stages and planes, stations where you can have a certain attainment. You can stay there in like a seat of power. So Devraj, he's always praying to Lakshmi. That's the goddess he goes to because he has his seat and he wants to keep his seat of Devalok. And she is this Stira Devi. She allows someone to be stationed in a place of authority, but that's because the merit is there. If the merit is there, there's an entrance into that intimacy. Okay, because that merit is a form of intimacy with life. It is not a surface thing, it is magnetic. It comes from the inside and it draws things to the person. It's not the other way around, it's not electric. It's when the person's pursuing, a lot of times they don't even get. This force is magnetic. Just like Lakshmi was drawn into the heart of Vishnu naturally, no tapasya, no nothing. She didn't ask anything of the beloved. She didn't demand anything because she's purely magnetic. Okay, so this is important. This is, where does Shukra get Dikbal? Where does Shukra get directional strength?
It's exalted in Pisces, right?
Yeah, it's Ucha in Meena Rashi, but where does he get strength? In which house?
Libra.
Oh, well, that's his Mula Trikone. So that would be the seventh house. But Dikbal, the real directional strength, fourth house.
Okay. Okay.
And that is the Sunday point of midnight, the most intimate point. The fourth house is absolute concealment. That is when the sun at midnight point is completely concealed from every horizon. See, Abhijit Muhurt is the noon point, which the sun is the dominant thing in the sky. That's why it's a successful Muhurta. And that is lacking intimacy. That's the 10th house. It is the opposite point of intimacy where Mangal, Mars, gets power. So you don't want to bring Mangal into the home because he does better where there's no intimacy. Mangal does great where there's no intimacy because he can just beat people up and do what he wants to do. So that's Mangal's world, the bar fight, the motorcycles, all that. So where you want to bring Shukra into the home, you want to bring Lakshmi into the home, that's concealed, that's secret, that's a private energy. The bedroom is private. At least it perhaps should be. Right? It's increasingly becoming not private, but and people think that that's going to make them stronger. Let's see. It'll be a social experiment. I have no idea. I hope I hope we live through this. But okay, so the The fourth house is a point of absolute darkness, of midnight. And midnight is another important muhurta in yoga. Very important for yogis, actually. If you can keep the midnight hour, Shukra is the natural yoga karga. Now, what also, Shukra goes reverse everyone else. He has reverse poles. Remember, he's hanging upside down, inhaling smoke. Okay. Literally, the planet Venus has reversed poles and is smoky or humid. So they ancient astronomers, they knew this. Shukra being reversed represents the left-handed path, actually, which is not what people think it is. There is the dark side of that path, which is more that Rahu Ketu business, but there is the pure side of the left-handed path as well. And there is the worship of Shakti, like a Shakta. You have to honor this intimacy and reverse the rules of this world. You must reverse the rules of this world. If being first is what Mangal says to do, then you have to be willing to be last. If Mangal says to kill your enemy, then Shukra says, let your enemy kill you. I know it sounds insane, but this is something of the yogic principle of contemplating. If you want to escape the prison of this world, you must go against this world. Okay, this is deep. It's very deep. I'm not recommending this path for people unless all they want is freedom. Okay, so I'm just mentioning, though, that this is the idea here that Shukra's reversed. He's not interested, this side of Shukra, how Shukra got his merit to become Shukracharya is by going against the world, actually. Now, he serves the asuras. So that's interesting, because this is where that Boga Karaka comes, because tapas cultivates tremendous merit and makes a person very magnetic and draws the world to them. So Mangal's way is to go out in the world and conquer. Shukra's way is to hang upside down and wait for the world to come to him. That is Devi. Shakti is magnetized. She draws everything into her. So if you want to heal Shukra, you have to reverse how you're thinking, actually. The aggressiveness, the externalized, constantly going after something is actually going to harm Shukra, because Shukra is more about that midnight point. Even where Shukra is Ucha, is the final pada. Some people say it's between the third and fourth pada. I am inclined to actually think it is the Meena Rashi pada, just for various reasons, but most likely it is the final pada of Meena Rashi. And this is also the 12th natural 12th house. Okay, so nothing about Shukra, all of his placements, 4, 7, 12. Even the 7th house is where the sun sets. Okay, so these things are something to consider if you're struggling in the world and you're thinking you need to come up with a better business plan. Maybe you need to come up with a better plan for yourself. Maybe it's not the external plan that is causing the problem. It could be your internal. You may be focusing so much on the electric current. You may be repulsive to life, repelling things away. Electricity does that. That's a Durga, just zap it. Now, she is magnetic too. It's a different thing. But her attack, her pursuit is quite electric. And it pushes things away. It can destroy things. It's great for demolition. But once again, if you're having problems in the home and the intimate life, you don't want to bring in demolition. So this is a lot of people right now. It's like we're being encouraged to bring Mangal into the home. And he belongs in the workplace or in the career. You could say he belongs in the 10th house. It's where he does good. See, they're trying to tell you about life. It's a book of life. It's not a book of personality. This isn't hokey horoscope reading. This comes from the rishis. This isn't Western astrology. This is profound. It's actually really profound when you start looking at where each graha has its its death. They see each one of them has a place of death. Each one of them has a place of directional strength. Each one of them has a place where they complement, where they kind of lose, they lose strength. They have all these different, there's all these different rules, but a lot of astrologers were focusing on personalities. And it's not a tremendous help comparatively to understanding these subtle the way the breath is moving in the person, the way their life is breathing. It's the best way I know how to say it. You can feel it when you're around a person. If we would just be a little more silent and actually care about the person we're talking to, really care about them and listen to what they're saying in our readings with them. A lot of times what you'll get this flow. It's something that words can't give you, but you can see it often in the chart, that the way the prana is moving, the vital life force is moving, you can see that. And that's very helpful because it's not so much personality. Honestly, so much is thrust onto us on what to believe that I don't even know if anyone's at fault. Like to say someone has this bad personality or they're doing this or they're doing that, it's almost like it would just be nice for the whole world to take a vacation and have to spend a month with themselves. Lock everyone in a room. No internet, no nothing. They only have to deal with themselves for 1 month. It would be amazing. And furthermore, to be silent, says the person running their mouth. But yeah, so do you have questions about this so far? We've got a lot of names here. I assume people will read and take screenshots, but any questions, Navji? I know this is a rather deep topic, and that's why I kind of came in just with this, explaining it.
Well, this is really beautiful. I'm learning a lot.
So do you have any questions about Shukra or anything before I move?
Um, oh, I wanted to ask, you had mentioned, I think in your first slide, that about the mantra. So is there any specific day they can start the mantra, even just the basic one? And you had mentioned like doing it for 40 days, right?
Yeah, so Friday is the day of Lakshmi as well as Shukra Graha. So it's the same day. And typically it's recommended to avoid meat, of course, any violence in general. So guys, think about this. If you're not eating meat, but then you go to work and you fire 3 innocent people and laugh about it with a colleague, that's pretty violent. So you might as well go ahead and eat the meat. So we really need to be multidimensional in our thought and consider what is ahimsa, like what is nonviolence. So the whole point of not eating meat on the day of the week you're doing the sadhana is to participate as much as possible in nonviolence. Okay, and so things like that. So definitely on the day of, it's good to keep something in the north corner of the home. Typically they associate the northern direction. I mean, some people will say like the northeast or but I think north for Shukra is really good in my experience, and Lakshmi. East, if you can't do north, it's always those directions, right? Those are always considered, but specifically in this case I would say it's good to put it in the north. But you can just do the Devi's star as a yantra because Lakshmi is heavily associated with sacred geometry. Throughout her 1,000 names, you're going to see a lot related to the Sri Yantra and her being the form of chakras and the form of yantras. So she's definitely this stabilized forms. Like when we talk about even the golden ratio and things like that, this beauty of Lakshmi, the lotus faced one, the one whose face looks like an open lotus, which means extremely beautiful. And if you see a lotus, they're quite symmetrical in that way. So yantras, I would say to draw out the actual 6-pointed star with the bindu in the middle on Fridays on a white sheet of paper. So a white sheet of paper or cloth. I would recommend doing this. So the 6-pointed star is very special because it's an upward pointing triangle, which is the masculine principle, and the downward pointing triangle, which is the feminine principle, and they're in harmony. So they're together. And then the bindu in the middle. So that, of course, is Shukra's yantra, and it's actually the yantra for the heart chakra. Okay, and it is actually for Devi. And in so many of the tantras, this simple yantra is always used for Devi. So I would draw that, put the bindu in red, and I would find a very simple Lakshmi mantra. There's so much stuff online. I'm not a guru to initiate, but you can find one online and do it sincerely as you can. The Sahasranamam, if you listen to it and you try to chant it, it's interesting because what she says is that she'll show up even if you don't have faith. So, I mean, hey, why not? Why not? I'm just saying, try it. Just try it. But you could even pick one of these names. Now, there is a way to put them in mantra form. There's grammatical rules. So a lot of times with these, it would be like, Shanti Swarupanyay for Shakti. So Om Shanti Swarupanyay Namaha. So when you're putting it, actually, it's not going to be Shanti Swarupani. It's going to be Shanti Swarupanyay, like that. And for Shakti, also remember this, that these A's on the end, these long syllables are really important. So like it's going to be masculine if you do Dhruva, but if you say Dhruva, it's feminine. So Dhruva yay, it's going to have a yay on the end, usually for feminine. So make sure that you do look this up properly. Some of you may already know this, but I've just written the names down here, as they are. So, and some of this got messed up. It's really hard to use that print on this computer. But those who know will know how to fix it. So you can go to her 1,000 names and just pick one and make a simple mantra of it. You can even do Om Shreem, because that bija is one of the bijas that's said to be more harmless to the masses. Like you typically don't want to do something like whom, like doom, whom, those ones that are associated with very abrupt energy. Any krura bija, try to avoid that if you haven't been given that through initiation. And the way you know a bija is krura is, well, there's a few ways you can know, but they're quite obvious. They sound very So like cream is one of the ones that you actually don't, this cream Kaliye Namaha, people are doing all these things to Kali, but I think we have plenty of Kali in this society. People keep focusing on, I need independence, I need this, I need that. It's like, maybe you just need to be silent. Maybe just be with yourself for a minute. Just try loving something. Try loving something more than yourself silently and see if that heals anything instead of being so loud. This is where I feel I'm worried for us. That's why I'm talking like this. I'm really worried because, I mean, you just have so many voices, and I get it. We're all upset about something inside. Therefore, we probably need to reassess and withdraw a little bit. And I mean, even if you have a dog or a cat, just love the thing with all your heart and get simple joy from it. I mean, there's so much to fight about. There'll
Mm,
always be endless things to fight about. If you really want a solution, you will behave like that. That's what I've noticed. And you see very few of those people. Unfortunately, but if you really want a solution, you'll try to make peace, even with your worst enemy. Even with your worst enemy, if you're truly somewhat nonviolent inside, none of us are nonviolent. I don't believe it. Just like when people say, they're free of pride or something, I'm just like, oh God, just run. But because we all have it. So I'm not saying any of us are nonviolent, but when your real focus is to wash that violence, the blood off your hands, if you really have that feeling, if you've cultivated the understanding and the true desire to be nonviolent, you're still going to be violent. Okay. I don't even know if there's a perfection in that, to be honest, but you'll see that through the person's actions. They will try to create peace. They'll bring Lakshmi. That kind of person brings Lakshmi with them. Whatever Lakshmi is, like they're saying, Lakshmi resides in homes where husbands and wives do not argue. That means Lakshmi can't be wealth alone. Because plenty of people who fight and do all kinds of things to their spouse, I mean, have a lot of money.
mm,
This is not, Lakshmi is not just money. This is ridiculous this is a very deep thing. So anyway, so this Om Shreem is safe. Even if they just want to do Shreem and focus on that little star and think of Lakshmi or a lotus,
mhm.
like a pink or a white or even a red lotus. She's actually called red a few times in the rakta, like the color of blood red.
Mhm.
Um, like a kind of like the sari of a wife. Like when you get married, how that red, it's
Yes.
like blood red, that bright, happy red. So yeah, so it can be like that. But you can also get an image of Lakshmi, whatever the person's inclined to. So it can be just Om Shreem, or it can be, Om Shreem Lakshmaye Namaha. It can be any of her names, Padmavati, Kamala. So she has so many names, and you can make your own mantra with Shreem. I won't say any other bija, and I'm not a guru to initiate, but I'm just saying what would be something that someone could do independent.
Mhm.
Okay, without any initiation. And also the jnanams. Jnanam mantras are given to everyone. So like at the beginning of this jnanam, which is in the Skanda Puran, I believe online they have a better transliteration than this, where you can see the longer syllables, because you're going to need to see that. You're not going to just use this same a, this some of them are ah. I know it has it here, this hastam, but I don't think it has it in other place. I think it's got some mistakes. So find this jnanam. You're welcome to recite any jnanam, and Shukracharya or Shukra Graha also has his. Some people put the Hreem Bija before his, so I have heard it done as Hreem. Imakundam Rinalabham Daityanam Paramam Gurum Sarvashastra Pravaktaram Bhargavam Pranamamyaham. So you can do that one. And it does have a meter, it does have a chandas. You don't have to put the Hreem, but like Shreem, Hreem, these typically are gentle. Okay, typically. Another thing I would warn against is do not put a bunch of bijas together, because you don't know. It's a science.
Mm,
It's a science. For instance, there's a reason why, like Om, so is Ah. So the first Ah is always Brahma, the external sound. Then it's sustained, which is always Vishnu. The U in the middle is always Vishnu. The M, the Makara, is always Mahesh, Shiva. And what does Shiva do? He draws things inside himself. So we close our lips for the we hold the sound inside. and it actually vibrates the entire endocrine. If you do these sounds right, it's almost like it could floss your endocrine. It vibrates your whole body when you just keep doing it. And Shiva's syllable, his M, is actually the one that holds inside like that. So when you're doing these bijas, the shreem, like if you do hreem, make sure you get the last syllable well, because it's you part of it is bhakti, sure. Devotion is very important, but there is an actual science to these sounds. You try to pronounce them correctly. Yeah. So okay, so you can see all these names. So you can understand where I'm coming from, that I don't think she's just pots of gold. and Arundhati is very typical of some of the things that you will hear expressed about this very specific kind of Shakti, which is very still, self-effacing, less willing to come in the front. It's not that Lakshmi is completely hidden, it's not that, but that's her first instinct, is this she understands where the Guya Vidya is. She understands this. Okay, there's the things that are hidden are much more potent than things that are exposed. Mm-hmm. So if you read her 1,000 names, they also refer many times to her being very intelligent and understanding all the Shastras. Okay, so it's not something done just out of being a weak little woman and all this stuff. You try it. This is hard. To be Arundhati is harder than being a woman with weapons. Taking that kind of approach to life where you're just going to be on the receiving end of everything, that cultivates a strength that very few people have. So yeah, I would think twice before calling people like that weak. I actually think they have a strength that most of us don't have. So here, we'll move on to just like a little portion about health, and also another link with Shukra. One of her names is Mrita Sanjeevani. So we all know that Shukracharya does the sadhana to get the Mrita Sanjeevani Vidya, which is the power to resurrect the dead. And this is a really potent, there's all kinds of Mrita Sanjeevani mantras actually. So this whole thing with the Mrityunjaya mantra and all the Jum, Hum, Saha, like all those bijas, you're going to find those repeating themselves. Like there's one in Devi Mahatmyam for Shakti. There's various Mrita Sanjeevani mantras. So whatever one they're referring to in these old texts, I'm not even sure if anyone really knows. I'm not sure if that was ever written down or not. So she is considered linked with this secret Vidya, and so is Shukra. So the power to rejuvenate from death or from old age. Okay, so interesting that the lotus has a 1,300 year cycle where its seed is potent from day one to the last day. It doesn't lose its potency. It's one of the longest living seeds in that way. And so it also has a miraculous self-cleansing process. So it produces this kind of wax that they've been studying, molecular biologists, like I've written here. But there's also people studying it to make this certain kind of plastic now that's self-cleaning. Okay, so think about Shukra with this cleansing, this purity attribute. Purity is a big focus with Shukra, and it's also a big focus with Lakshmi. And this actually also gets mistranslated a lot. In society, we think purity is a very specific thing. Right? So if someone eats fresh food and they wear white and they take a shower at this time and that time, and they only say good things all day and they never make mistakes, that's purity. That is probably the most arrogant person in the room. So can I just knock this off its high horse right now? Okay, the person who's doing everything perfectly has a bigger pile of dirt usually to deal with, which is called spiritual arrogance. And that is really dangerous because that is what makes an asura. Asuras are not these bad people and all this. They are, what usually becomes the problem is they do everything in excess in a selfish way. Okay, so because of this arrogance, this entitlement, now I can become a guru because I've been celibate for 12 years and I've done this and I've done that. No one told you to be a guru. And if you're judging other people that have weaknesses, even if you're doing it silently inside, I would say you might need to sin a little and get yourself off the high horse. Why don't you go have some whiskey? Because that might be more pure by you falling down off that fake purity. Anyway, I'm just saying, I'm not saying to go do bad things, please. I'm kind of being facetious here. I'm provoking a little bit, but I'm just saying to consider that this purity is probably something that transcends the idea of what we understand. And it has very little to do, if that arrogance is there, it's polluting the purity all the way. So it's almost better for the person to be humbled by making mistakes. And guys, I will say this with all transparency. This is something I had challenged in myself after India. I lived there so long and I was very austere. And I've had direct experience with the subtle pride that happens when you have a certain kind of discipline and you can do these tapasyas. There is a subtle form, even if you're a naturally compassionate person, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's nearly impossible to escape that spiritual pride. And seriously, I have to say that I challenged that in myself to such a degree that I think I went overboard with it. And I fell flat on my face doing it. So I don't recommend that either. But I would say to nip it before you get as bad as mine was, to the point where I had to challenge it like that. If you're very sincere on this path, you're going to come to a point where love is purity. And anything that takes you away from loving others is impure. So that includes your pride of purity. So this is very deep, and it actually also on that path, you can't demand anything from the beloved. So if you're sitting there, I've done this practice for so long, why isn't this, like, if you're demanding anything, you can become quite entitled. If you're good at tapasya, you can become secretly kind of, it can really be a problem. I'll just say that it can really, really be a problem. So Lakshmi, this purity, this self-cleansing, this regenerative ability, she's renewed in the heart of Vishnu every day. That same face of the beloved is new to her every day. If you can get there, that is purifying. That is purity. That has purity. It's like the old day is washed away naturally because that love, the ocean from that love, is the same face, is as beautiful as it was the last day, if not more. That depth is the purity. This other kind of purity, we do need it. We don't need to be becoming like, I'm not saying to go like smoke a pack of cigarettes and like punch someone in the face. I'm not saying to go challenge your spiritual path this way. I mean, I'm just saying that please don't underestimate the power of spiritual pride, and please don't relate that to this kind of purity. Okay. Okay, so speaking of purity and compassion and those things, these are other names that are very unique to Lakshmi Mata. And you will see Kshama repeated a lot for her. This word is kind of interesting because it can relate to forgiveness too, tolerance, patience, depending on the context. Shuddha, we know is pure, like we're just talking. And here we see she who causes the flower to open. Once again, what is causing that flower to open? So any issues with Shukra Graha, I hope it's becoming a little clear now. Not to, like, if you take a bud of a flower and you peel back, you know, most of the time you destroy the flower. If you take it and manually make it, you know, like hibiscus, one of my favorite flowers. If you take a hibiscus and it's closed, you just put it in water and it'll open. You just give it some, right? You're just gentle with it. You just put it in water. But if you sit there and you open, like, it's going to fall apart. Same thing with like a rose that hasn't opened all the way. If you clip it and sit it in the water, it will open. But if you peel it with your hands, you destroy it. And there's something with this cool, calm, gentle handling of ourselves and aligning ourselves with what our goal of union actually is, meaning sitting ourselves in the water, not peeling back with our hands, not forcing something to open. But there's something with Shukra, like, once again, magnetic. He's opposite the way of the world. He's not going the same way as the world. That's not how Shukracharya actually got his merit. He did become very involved in Boga, but that's not how he got there. He got there from being a great tapaswan. He was a great yogi. So, and this in also did frightening penance, is what they say. I mean, terrible things that the normal person couldn't do. So it's not that when he couldn't afford a certain kind of car, he went and bought one. This guy was hanging upside down from a tree, having them throw smoke in his face. I don't think he was concerned about how he looked or whatever. So something about Shukra has to do with dealing with our internal state first. So if he has reversed poles, see, Mangal you can usually remedy through action. Mangal has a lot to do with character, a lot to do with externalized care. That's a whole other topic. Mangal is very connected to Shakti too, but not usually so much Mahalakshmi. So with Mangal, it's a different kind of remedy because he's getting the strength in the 10th house, meaning when the sun is the most prominent thing in the sky. See, Shukra is getting the most powerful when the night is black and when the sun is completely concealed, meaning that that is an internalization of energy. The light is pulled inward. So he's getting more strength when we are willing to be self-effacing, when we're willing to say we're sorry, when we're willing to be patient with others, when we're not willing to pull out a weapon so quickly. And it's interesting, though. It's very interesting because in all the stories, Shukracharya is very temperamental. Now, this speaks to the passion of Shukra. Shukra and Mangal are two carriers of different kinds of passion. So, like, whereas Mangal can rouse the army, Mangal is very good at getting people to conform. He's the one that's going to slap you in a uniform. He's going to get you into a uniform and have you die for a cause. He can sell that to you, Mangal. Shukra can do a good job of that too, believe it or not. He can be quite political, but his passion is different. His passion is usually something economic, something related to fairness, okay, things like that. So yes, there is this passionate side of Shukra that can even be dangerous, just like Devi in her stories. Devi, when she's crossed, she's quite dangerous. Okay, so it's not that this force can't be dangerous. Any force that goes inward and can be still, be more weary of that force than any other force because it's collecting strength. And when it gets let out, it's very intense. Shukra actually is one of the most dangerous grahas for revenge in the story. So it's not that see, all of the grahas have this higher side and this, I don't even like higher, lower. All of them have a, I would say, an equalized kind of balanced side and a side that's quite imbalanced that can result in negative things like violence. Okay, so Shukra is one of those that when out of balance, his passion can become excessive. And this is why he does very good in the feet. Well, he does very good in Pisces or Meena Rashi. There's a whole secret with that too. I purposely didn't put that in here, but there's an old saying that the wife should massage the feet of the husband. I'm going to get all these women after me. They say that in our hands, after marriage, the old saying is that in a female's hands after marriage, Guru is there, Jupiter is there. And in the feet of the man, actually, it's not so complimentary to the man the way it's said, is that his pride, his ego is in his feet. And that is Shukra. It shows up in the form of Shukra. Now, I have some kind of curiosities about if there's something genetic that they're trying to explain there. Just because Shukra Dhatu, the whole reproductive thing, I don't know why the feet. See, I'm not a medical genius, but so the wife massaging the man's feet is said to calm or pacify his, I guess, egoistic tendencies and create a more peaceful home. But she does it through actually her wisdom of touching his body, not talking at him. Okay. So I think it's a way of saying to satisfy, satisfy the fires of his body, the passions of his body in a way, just to calm him. This our wisdom. It is Jupiter's wisdom. So ladies, don't kill me. But yeah, but I think there's a reason why Shukra, in that spot of the 12th house, because he is the natural yoga karaka. There's something they're trying to tell you by that Shukra really needs union with something. That graha is going to force you into union with something, depending on where it's at. You don't want union with discord. You can have all of it that you want in this world, but if you really don't want that, then you've got to find where to place that, the part of you that wants union with something, the part of you that enjoys music, the part of you that enjoys eating. We're all like, all those little experiences that the indriyas have, the senses have, they're all little unions, little tiny unions, right? And we always want more. That's why we'll get like a sweet and we'll just keep eating it. It's awesome. It's a good experience. It's a good experience. And Shukra is very happy in that. But only the problem is temporarily until the health gets out of balance and all that. That's the issue. It's not a sin. It just ends up hurting you. So see, with Shukra, you have to understand what causes the flower to open, meaning you need to know your internal self. Your psychology is just the superficial level of it. This is superficial level of this, the 4th house is psychology, the mind. And that's just superficial. The deeper side is something that a psychologist could never explain to you. And you have to find that out. You have to go into that. So, it's interesting here too, this agrina, she who is without hate. once again, there's something with Lakshmi in this attempt to renounce violence. I will not dare say that any of us are nonviolent. Once again, I don't care if you're vegan. I don't care what you think you're doing. This world is find a way to make you violent, even if it's through your words. And so we need to be humble with this. But there's something with this with Lakshmi where there's an attempt. There's an attempt to not harm anyone through words, through this, through that. So if you want to invite Lakshmi, if you want to remedy Shukra, consider that it's opposite, definitely opposite of what the media is telling you to do. And it's definitely opposite of what the self-respect that they're feeding you. But it's also not self-deprecation, should not be understood as self-deprecation. As a matter of fact, Shri means self-respect. So, this this is a form of self-respect that will not let you down if it's done right.
Mm-hmm.
See, taking off your clothes in front of a camera is not confidence, especially if you look good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A lot of these actresses are like, oh, I'm doing this for, body acceptance, and they look perfect.
Yeah.
So, and let's say are perfect as far as what the media tells us looks perfect. Okay, I don't think anything about that. But I'm saying that there's no real gaining of anything there. Let's say even if you're brave and you don't feel you look perfect and you do it, you're going to have a momentary feeling of freedom, and you're going to have to keep doing more and more drastic things to get that feeling back, because it's not genuine freedom to take off your clothes in front of a camera. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
See, nothing matters. It's not going to matter to the internal. You're going to have to eventually divert yourself from what others think at all.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they like you, accept you, whether you stand in front of them and they reject you, it's all the same eventually to your heart. The heart doesn't even care what other people think, really. The heart is longing for something else. And that's what Shukra is interested in. You cannot force the deep side of Shukra to be interested. You cannot force the deep side of Shukra to be interested in the Indriyas for that long. He will be interested in if he's got an imbalance, if a person perpetuates an imbalance of some sort, but he'll turn into depression in the chart. Actually, I know people don't think Shukra deals with depression, but actually excess of anything results in dullness. And so all of these grahas can become, that whatever their function is, can become dull. You do something too much, it's dull. I mean, like, even if you love one food and you eat it all the time, it's going to become dull.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually you have to deal with what's going on inside. And that is a big theme with Shukra, and that this is exactly why Lakshmi, it's not because it's just a material wealth thing. It is because something deep inside where the root is growing for the lotus. You got to go to that original point, that little bija, wherever that little bija was planted. That is where Shukra, that is where it's getting you. It's not the stem, it's not the flower itself, it's the whatever's been planted there long back. And that's why it's the fourth house. So, Navjeet, you haven't interrupted me. I was hoping you had classes. Questions. I've just been running my mouth.
I'm really enjoying listening to you and just all your profound knowledge. It's so beautiful. And I really resonate with all the information you're sharing. It's more about like the actual embodiment and really practicing that instead of like the most beautiful remedy.
Yeah. It's always better to actually do it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, so I hope this has been clear. You know, we didn't go over all the names, but I mean, people can see them here. You
Yeah.
know, these are very important. I mean, look at this name, Brahma, Kaivalya, Sadhana. I mean, this she's the sadhana, the practice that leads to freedom, to the absolute freedom. This is Lakshmi we're talking about.
Mhm.
So what is that wealth? I mean, see, I feel like these pictures, you know, I picked a lot of the ones where she's with Vishnu because I wanted to please her.
Mm.
Because I think what pleases her is to be on his chest,
Mhm.
to be with him or to be at his feet. So not to show her alone and with pots of gold. This is most of her names go back to he is her wealth.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm going to get my head cut off for saying this, but I I wish we could just all respect each other again because this is that Shri. This is that Shri. So no matter how different our opinions are, no matter even if someone says something you just absolutely can't stand, what in you cannot be patient
Mhm.
and just talk to them? What is it in you that's burning at both ends so intensely that you just have to, you
Mhm.
know, say something about another person? See, these are the things to question with Shukra, because even though it's the mouth or the mind that's like popping off, which is actually interesting because that's Buddha and Chandra. And it's an interesting relationship there because, you know, uh, the Rashi of Bud, Shukra is Nietzsche, and it shares the house with the second house with the moon, which is speech. Vrishab Rashi is ruled by both Chandra and Shukra. So those two grahas often waste Shukra,
Mhm.
moon and Bud. And it's the second and sixth house, which is interesting because they can both be very detrimental for health and all that. So to drain Shukra is to drain our own virility. And virility is an interesting word here too, because they say Shukra is virya. So do you know what that word would mean? I mean, you know it in Hindi, right?
We are like in
Like
Hindi.
fear. Yeah, like yeah, it's often associated with strength or courage or, you know, things like that.
Yes, with more strength.
Yeah, with strength, but really it's virility.
Mm.
So, okay, so in Sanskrit, very commonly, it could be connected even like an Ayurveda to the potency of your reproductive system. Like how potent are you? How fertile, because that was reproductive power, right? Virility. And that has a lot to do with the person's state of health.
Mhm.
So, you know, Shukra not doing so well in the sixth house.
Mhm.
It's just an interesting thing because the sixth house tends to, that's actually in medical astrology where the intestines would be,
Mhm.
like a portion of the intestines. Portion of the intestines would be covered through there, leading up to the colon in the eighth house. So you start the whole thing with the stomach at that tip of the fifth house, sixth house, seventh, all that stuff there. So you don't really want to put Shukra there. It's interesting when you start looking at these things. So virility also has to do with enthusiasm. Okay, like enthusiasm for life. It doesn't mean fertility fuels, please don't mistake me, but it does have something to do with it. The simple basic enthusiasm for life. Like if you look at most nature,
Mhm.
most creatures are procreating all the time. Plants, animals, everything is procreating. Even the cells in our body are dying and being born. Like cell mitosis is always going on. Like new cells are being created, old cells are dying. I mean, there's a whole process of life going on all the time. So this virility, this potency has something to do with that creative potential, that enthusiasm that drives through life. Like Venus has a lot to do with the original innocence of the heart chakra as well. Like that original innocence that would even let a person start a family. Meaning, like young parents just will have kids without thinking about it. Like what is the responsibility here? But all those chemicals almost drive a person into a form of, it blinds a person, right? But there's an innocence behind that. It shouldn't be seen as impure. It's part of nature. It's part of nature. And then when you start getting older and you start thinking more, it's like, oh, I don't want to do this. But I'm just saying that Shukra does have something to do with these kind of forces that bring two things together magnetically, and they don't even know why they're brought together. They're just so magnetically drawn. That attraction. Like Lakshmi, she just sees Vishnu's chest, his heart, and goes to it. So there's something in Shukra that deals with those natural forces. So to protect Shukra is also to be gentle with yourself regarding your own nature. Not to be so harsh. Don't be krura or ugra with your desires. I think a lot of woe has come in from these religious ideas that violence should be used to handle desires.
Mm-hmm.
So like forcing people to behave a certain way. Mm-hmm. Okay, like that, right? So like, killing them if they don't, like the witch trials. A man could be attracted to a woman and say she possessed him with witchcraft and she would get burned. This is insanity. I mean, it's like punishing life for being life. It's really sad. So if you don't have a very honest connection with your desire, part of you that desires, you're more likely to become violent. Mm-hmm. So don't develop a mental illness trying to do all these spiritual disciplines that actually aren't spiritual. All of the rishis were married. Now there are people that can be celibate for real and they don't become violent and all that. But the desire is real. The desire there is still desire. It's real desire. So wherever your desire really is, you need to be a little bit gentle with yourself, because how you treat yourself, you will treat others. That is guaranteed. Very, very much. So there's something here to really think about with Shukra. Interesting in the Devi Bhagavatam. Have you ever read it, Navji? Have you ever looked at Devi Bhagavatam? Devi Bhagavatam?
No.
I think I have it right here. Yes, I do. Oh, I have a nice copy for anyone who's interested. The reason I like this one is because it's got the original Sanskrit alongside of the translation. Translations, I don't like it when they sanitize or embellish. I like just a raw script. So this one has actually the Sanskrit next to it. So yeah, I have it out because the other night I was looking at some things, and there's a character in here. I won't get into names and all of that, but there's a character that starts out rather, self-righteous. You could say very, very disciplined, doing everything right, and is convinced that women are evil, and he won't marry, and his father Vyasa is trying to explain to him gently why he should perhaps get married. And he goes on to say some rather unpleasant things about women, which a lot of these scripts will say. You have to have a stomach of steel to read some of this, trust me. Because some of it just sounds like 10-year-old boys had no clue about women and they wrote it like all women are in one category, or like we're all exact, it's just weird. Some of it's weird to read. However, this is actually a more sophisticated, if you have the patience to read it. Once again, if you don't let yourself just get offended and you actually follow through with every chapter, and you read where it goes, because eventually this character gets married. He has to go to King Janak, the father of Sita. He has to go to King Janak, patiently detangles him from this kind of pious, self-righteous pedestal that he's on, even though he's very strong in Vivek, discernment.
Mhm.
He's coming at it with this near violence. When you hear his speech or when you read his speech, it almost sounds violent or hateful towards women, and then hateful towards the world. It sounds very repulsed. And Janak is a householder, but he's a Jivan Mukta. He's liberated while in the body, right? So he's just looking at this boy, and one of the things he tells him is that to be careful, because if you're up here, and if you fall from up there, it's a really hard fall.
Mhm.
So why don't you take small steps, like every other human being? In other words, he's telling him,
Mhm.
have humility and get married and be a householder. Take the steps that everyone else takes, so that you don't come crashing down. It's almost portrayed as if, think about it, if you're real rigid with anything and you go up high and you fall down, you're definitely going to break. But if you're fluid, if
Mhm.
you're more fluid and you take small steps, more likely to survive the path. So, but King Jonik, puts this kind of coolness, adds this coolness to his fire. This boy's on fire with this. This is all something that should be thought about with Shukra, because it is the coming together of the upward pointing triangle and the downward pointing. It is the coming together of two opposite forces, and they're in harmony. They're not fighting. Whenever you hear someone speak like that anyway, you know, like they don't like men, they don't like women, they don't like this, they don't like that. That's it. See, something really strong is going on with Mongol.
Mhm.
See, and if they come to you and they're struggling with things of Shukra, then now you know exactly where to encourage. It's got to cool down, because actually they're hurting life. They may hurt someone else without even knowing it, meaning at least even just their feelings. They might, most of all, they're hurting themselves.
Mhm.
They're handling themselves very violently.
Mhm.
Yeah. Especially the heart who doesn't see these distinctions that way. They're the childlike quality. So if you desire ice cream, you're not going to go whip yourself at night because you desire ice cream. In humility, you might offer some to your beloved and then have a bite yourself. Just don't go overboard. Don't do it at the sacrifice of balance. See, the heart chakra is this perfect balance between the two opposites. So virility, all these things come from this understanding. Now, there are ways to define nature. The yogic path is all full of that, where you do go to extremes. There are tapasyas where you go to extremes, but a lot of that you have to be really careful, because once again, the arrogance that comes from it is quite dangerous. That kind of arrogance can be very dangerous. So for others and yourself, and you might be less useful too, you know, because how can you help others? Like, what is it for? If you're doing this kind of, it's just like trying to get to the top at your work. There's nothing wrong with it, but if you have to take down your brother to do it, or you have to hurt your friend to do it,
Mhm.
see, that's where Mangal and Shukra, see, these two together, oddly, if they're conjunct, it's a yogic conjunction. So please, guys, don't put this in your head like Mangal and Shukra together are bad. As a matter of fact, I even like it if Mangal is associated with one of the gurus, meaning Brahaspati or Shukra.
Mhm.
I like the charts where Mangal has an association with one of those, because that is actually a very yogic conjunction, because both of them are so passionate. They'll come together, and Mangal will give a lot of direction to Shukra. So that the conjunction's not bad. Don't think that, or don't think that their interaction. I'm talking more from just the strict point of view of how Mangal gets strength and how Shukra gets strength. It's literally opposite.
Mhm.
And so usually one belongs in one place and the other belongs in the other place. And where they come together naturally in a very good way is actually through the path, the spiritual path. Where they come together in a very nice way is through the spiritual path. So, and actually it's a very physical conjunction to Venus, Mars. It makes good doctors, things like that. Because Mangalan is Deha Karka. He understands a lot about the body, mechanics about the body. And then Shukra is enthusiastic. So, it can be very enthusiastic about health and healing and all that. So please don't think this is a bad conjunction. But I'm just saying that in general, because Mangal gets that strength in the 10th and Shukra gets that strength in the 4th, they're exactly opposite in the sense that they get strengthened in different ways. So to remedy Shukra, another thing is a simple thing, but really, how are you treating other people? Truly, like, how are you treating other people? Because Shukra, natural Mula Trikona, is in Tula Rashi, and that's trade. Whatever we're trading with others, which we're always trading. This isn't only the economy here. I mean, the economy is in Libra and in Jyotish, no doubt, but that's also the handshake of, just your everyday interaction. You may do this for a person, they do something for you, even if they're not asking, even if it's complete generosity. There's always some kind of exchange going on with us.
Mhm.
So what are you giving to others? The heart always gives. So if you're just taking, that's also probably harmful to Shukra. If you're never giving, and of course, there's always giving too much. So I'm not saying to be imbalanced. I'm just saying, think about it. If you're having problems with Shukra in your life, are you blaming your partner for everything? Are you being self-reflective enough? There's opposite ends of the spectrum with this too. Are you being abused? And should you be listening to yourself and getting out? So it goes both ways. It doesn't mean to just take it. Okay, I want to make that really. Lakshmi is very strong. This Vishnu is one that can be depended on. So please don't think I'm thinking every husband is like Vishnu or every partner, just every partner in general. Okay, but a lot of times when I see the issues with Shukra, there's a lot of blame. This person did this person did that. It's not my fault. Sometimes, even if it's not our fault, that way of thinking helps no one.
Mhm.
So remember, because Shukra is Virya, you want to conserve your strength with Shukra. You don't want to be just spending unnecessary strength, justifying. I didn't do this. I didn't say this. I didn't. Let's just be quiet. Who cares? Just get out. That's like, seriously, this is one of the best things you can do with Shukra, is not waste the energy on self-justification. Tell the right people, tell the people that care, being able to discern who really has your best interest. I think that's another reason, the story with Lakshmi, this specific one where she just looks at Vishnu's heart and is magnetized straight to his heart. This is another reason. He has her absolute best interest.
Mhm.
So, Navjeet, I thought you would interrupt me more. I just feel like I'm floating out here.
I'm just really learning a lot and enjoying, and it's really beautiful session, EG. I'm just so
Oh,
grateful that you've taken your time. time out and sharing this profound knowledge. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I don't even know what it is, but I'll say that I'm grateful that you allowed me to talk like this and not just about prediction and all of that. So I apologize to those of you who are listening, thinking this may be about just mechanical prediction. Um, it's interesting because some people, they'll ask me to do that more. And I just want to say for the record, I do this on purpose. I avoid that. I do understand the mechanics actually quite well. It's, it's, we're missing, we're missing something by not allowing ourselves to go into the subtlety and I would say into the depth. Because if you don't trace something back to its root, in this case, some roots you need to leave alone and just mow the, like, who cares where it came from? Just get away from it. But I'm saying in this case, since in the case of sacred knowledge, um, if something's just spinning on its tail, meaning we just keep hearing the same things over and over, and it's clearly not always helping.
Mhm.
Okay, it's not always helping a person to tell them Venus is debilitated.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I keep hearing these reports of like poor women, poor women in this case that get told, oh, they have Venus Mars conjunct there, so they're not going to have a good marriage or so. And it's so wrong. It's not actually correct. It's actually sad that this kind of the repetition, or they've got this dosh and this thing. And so I think it's important, guys, all of us, not just me. I'm just I've been doing sadhana since 17, so I don't even know what else to talk about. I can't barely even hold a conversation about anything other than this stuff. I'm so sorry. I really can't. No, if someone asked me to teach a class on the mechanics of prediction, I won't be able to do it. So, but I would say that out of experience, one thing I know, because I do understand the mechanics, they don't hold my interest as much. And if you're really interested in it, then take this deeper thing, and then you will be better at the mechanics. You will be better at the superficial if you understand the depth. Yeah, you'll be much better. Actually, a lot of the predictive techniques I find very interesting because um, I had figured out some of them just by memorizing the graha sadhanas in the very beginning. I didn't have to learn some of the technical things because some of it naturally was stated in the sadhanas.
Mhm.
Just by listening to the mantra, just by understanding the qualities, like Shani sadhana was one of the first ones I did. And I knew so much about Shani without having to anyone have to tell me, just from the mantras and all of this. So much is hidden in the actual original form of the knowledge. Then if you have that, then the surface actually comes to you much easier. You won't feel like you're doing such intellectual gymnastics either. It'd be more like, you know, eating honey as opposed to eating bitter. So it's just try to have something sweet. I mean, make it like music somehow. I mean, the mantras are great. Literally make it like music. Um, but learning the Sanskrit, I would say, is the top of your list. I've always said this from the beginning, ever since I've been talking, on KRS channel or wherever. From the very, very beginning, one of the things I was always saying, because I had to do the sadhanas first myself, and because of that, I can tell you that as a friend, that is the foundation. All the stuff people are interested in, like the flashy techniques, and I want to be able to tell this, and it all comes from the inner.
Mhm.
Doesn't come from the outer. You can be so clever and get every prediction wrong.
Right. Makes
There are
sense.
stories of Jyotishis that had the wrong birthday and gave a perfect reading.
Wow.
And see, some people will say, oh, that's because they're reading body language. No, they know things. You can know things that you shouldn't be able to know, like intimate details about a health problem that the person didn't tell you. You're not reading body language. This is something else. If the grahas want you to know, you will know. If they do not want you to know, if the person does not have fate to know, or if you don't have the fate to be that person's Jyotishi, you will be veiled. It takes a lot of humility to do this properly. You know, a lot of people can boast and say, I know this in and out, and I do this technique, and no one, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'll stay away from that. My little portion of nakshatras, I'm happy. I'm not perfect, and that's okay. But enough will reveal itself just in that. I have enough to talk to someone about just with the nakshatras. That's it. That's all I need. So I don't know. The thing with perfecting intellectual knowledge, it usually is better if it comes from a place where the intellect is not having to jump all over the place and first the waves are still. If everything's still first, then when something comes up from the deep, the mind will see it very clearly and the mind will never forget it. It won't have to do all these memorizing things. It will never forget that. It's yeah. Yeah. Navjeet, do you have any questions?
No questions. I think we need to do more topics, you know, more different topics. And this was really nice to just, like you said, going back to the foundation, to the root, and just really embodying and just doing the work, instead of
Yeah.
just
Yeah, if
finding
people
these
are
things.
truly interested, I'm open to doing Saraswati and Durga as well, like the three Shaktis. If they're truly interested, this is what I'm interested in. I'm no longer, those of you who know me well, I'm not offering personal readings. I do have classes on my website if you want to study with me, but it is going to be Guhya Vidya more or less. Like it'd be more of these subtle things, and from there you can take it into I am teaching something on the nakshatras, and that will have it'll have a lot of technical, but it's going to be from the brahmanas, and we're going to be going through the nakshatra suktam. um, and that is quite technical, and those people that want to finish at the end by learning the suktam, I'm willing to sit with them and teach them the Nakshatra Suktam, but we're going to have a full class. I have it on my website, so
Sure,
people can.
I'll put the link of your website when we post the video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But that's like, yeah. So if people are interested in Saraswati and Durga as well, I'm so happy any time to talk about any of the Devis or Devatas or any of the classics, or I'm so happy to do any of that. But the whole thing with telling a person that they're going to have this personality because Mars is in their first, uh, or something, I would even encourage people to be careful with that kind of Jyotish.
Mhm.
Is it causing more harm, or if something is causing something good, if the fruits that grow from it are good, then it's probably a good seed. But if it's causing people to worry and depend on you and pay you more money because they're scared of this dosh, what are you doing?
Yeah,
What are you doing to people's peace of mind?
exactly. Mhm.
And what are you doing to your Shukra then? Because that's that intimate, you must be affecting your heart. If you're affecting their heart, giving them fear and all of this negative, I just don't know. I think our voices are very powerful. So if people are really interested in this, Navji, I'm so happy to do Saraswati and Uma Devi as
I
well.
would love, I would love that. And please drop us a comment on if you guys would also like the other two videos, and we would love to do it. This is so beautifully done. Thank you so much, Evji.
Oh, thank you, Navji. Are you sure you don't have any questions? Speaking of running the mouth, Okay. Okay, so guys, another thing is, I just thought of this, is that on the Ashwini video, I had mentioned that if anyone needed to personally talk to me about any situation they're in with like gurus or things like that, that I was willing to talk to them. They don't have to pay me. And I won't say anything bad about any guru. That's not why I'm offering this. But sometimes you need a friend.
Mm.
And there's a lot of people saying that they're masters and that they do gurus and they do this and that. And I really have a feeling for people in that regard. So I do stand by that. And my email is on my website. And just be patient with me getting back to you because I have a lot. But if you're going through anything difficult, strange that you don't understand with a guru, I'm willing to be a reflection for you. I just want to put my heart there. I won't give an opinion, but I will reflect back my experience and just be a sounding board. Okay. Okay, so we should close. Om Aim Klim Klim Chamundai Vichai. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Evji.